Well, as a percussionist, Walter Santos toured the country with a who's who of the music business, but offstage, he had a secret that threatened his entire career and even his life. Walter's addiction to drugs was slowly killing him until a chance meeting with another musician saved his life.
His friends call him Santos. As a percussionist, he's recorded with and shared the stage with greats like Charlie Daniels, Weather Report, and George Benson. He grew up in the Bronx, where he learned to play and developed a love for doo-wop.
The Italians were usually doo-wopping, and the Puerto Ricans were usually, they'd have the congas out, the bongos, and they'd be manic. But, you know, I always was drawn to that, and I just progressively got into the neighborhood funk band.
His first break into music came early, when the jazz band he played in landed a gig at Carnegie Hall.
I show up with my drums, I'm on stage in front of all these screaming people at Carnegie Hall, and I was just like, wow, I'm here. Usually people work years to play at Carnegie Hall. I start out at Carnegie Hall.
Santos made a name for himself as a performer and studio musician in New York. He also developed a habit of using drugs.
What was the root of that?
As far back as I can remember with drugs, there was always an emptiness inside, just a longing to know why I was created, why I was put here. But the minute I touched it, something happened. It just hit that spot. You know, whatever that spot is inside a person, it gave me that instant courage, gave me that sense of security, peace, and I knew I needed this stuff every day.
In the late 70s, he landed a job with the band Fandango and went on tour. By now, his drug habit had become a full-blown addiction.
And I remember a few times having seizures on the tour bus, and all the band members going, "What's wrong with you, man? You were foaming at the mouth, flopping like a fish out of water." And it got bad. And then it gets to the point where you start thinking about maybe you should kill yourself, because there's no relief from this madness, you know.
Did you ever get to that point? Did you want to kill yourself?
It started in 1979. Santos was arrested in New York for selling narcotics and released on 5 years probation. He moved to Miami and eventually found a gig playing for 60s rock legend Dion, who at one time had drug problems of his own.
I got to the studio. He's doing a gospel record. And I looked at him, and he's reading the Bible in the studio. Usually in the studio, you don't see the Bible. That's the last thing you see.
Santos noticed something different about Dion.
There was a peace, there was a security, there was a quiet peace about him that I was attracted to. And I connected with Dion right away. And then I realized, you know, that he was set free. He's not using drugs no more. He's not self-destructing anymore.
Yet you walked out of that session, and you went right back to where you left off before you walked in.
Hey, go back to life.
Yeah.
You know, that's a nice story. Nice that it happened to him, but that couldn't happen to me.
3 weeks later, Santos tied a vacuum cleaner hose to the tailpipe of a car and attempted suicide. After a brief stay in a state hospital, Santos contacted Dion.
I remember calling Dion up and saying, "Dion, I want what you have." He said, "You know, we have a Bible study tonight down in North Miami. Why don't you come on down?" And I got there, and they asked me to go up and pray. And I received Christ that night. That was in 1981. And the Holy Spirit hit me like a freight train. And I knew something happened. I just felt peace like I never felt in my life, like 1,000 pounds were lifted off me.
With counseling, Santos got off the drugs, and for 5 years he traveled with Dion, sharing his testimony and faith. He married, moved to San Diego, and joined the staff of a local church. But Santos got into debt, and his marriage failed. After 12 years, he was headed for a crash.
And I picked up pills instead of picking up the Bible. And as soon as I touched it, it was like I awoke this sleeping tiger inside me, and boy, he got big, and he started tearing me up.
He returned to New York, and a life he thought he left behind.
And I got addicted to heroin again. And I went all the way. I was going downhill fast. And I took a massive shot of heroin and my heart stopped. I was in the Bronx, in this building. The guy that I was buying my drugs from at the time beat me in the chest, made a lot of racket. I remember coming to us, I was on the floor looking at the ceiling going, "What did you do?" He goes, "You were dead. I beat you in the chest. You got your heart going." I was praying to God to bring you back. He was praying to God to bring me back. And I looked at him and I said, "You should have left me dead. I don't want to be alive." I denied my only hope.
Friends from church convinced Santos to return to San Diego. He entered a drug rehab program at a place called Calvary Ranch.
And the first thing I did when I got to Calvary Ranch was say, "Pastor Tom, he's the guy that runs Calvary Ranch. I'm dying. Can you help me?" And he took me in his interview room. And he said, "You need to get right with God right now." And I got on my knees, and I got right with God that day.
Santos is still off the drugs and on track with God. He keeps close ties with Calvary Ranch, helping where he can. He's recorded several CDs, including Street Corner Symphony. The lyrics are Christian, but the music is none other than that Doo-Wop sound.
Humanity, he's the only one who frees us, gives us life and victory. Doo-Wop.
He travels the country now, sharing his story and God's message of love and peace to drug addicts, inmates, and anyone else willing to listen.
With Christ, all things are possible. And my life is beautiful today. And I know my mission, my calling, to be faithful to God. And He'll take care of all the details.